say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and I have an amazing show tonight. I am telling you, this show is unfreaking believable. I have Bill Treasurer. He's amazing. Okay, he wrote this book. I'm holding it up for those people who are watching us on Facebook Live. It's called Courage Goes to Work. It's absolutely brilliant. The book is fabulous. I see people joining us live already all over on Facebook Live and also on Castbox FM, where we're also live doing a live cast right now. And by the way, we want to thank all those folks out there on Castbox FM for allowing us to do the live cast. And of course, I want to thank all of you for being out there and sharing with me on a Facebook Live, and of course all of you listening to this on a podcast eventually. You know what? Thank you for listening. Especially I got to give a shout out to Ronit, who is on a beach in Israel, and she said to me at the gym, she goes, "We mentioned my name on your show," and I said, "Okay, you know what? If you're going to be on a beach in Israel, Ronit, because Israel is the number 3 country in the world that downloads my show. You know what, Ronit? I hope you're having a great time at the beach." So there it is. There's your mention on A New Direction. So we're going to have a great time with Bill Treasurer. He's absolutely fantastic. We're going to love it. I'm just telling you how to build backbones, boost performance, and get results. This book is not just a business book. This book is a life book, and Bill's going to talk about that, but it's absolutely outstanding. You're going to love it, I promise you. But before we do that, let's do what we do every week. Why? Right? And what is that? Well, we check in with the 4 areas of your life. You know, I believe that we are 4-part people. We are physical people, we are mental people, we're emotional people, and we're spiritual people. And I want to check in with you today. Where are you at from week to week, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, where are you at physically today? How are you doing today? Are you doing, you physically feeling okay, right? What's going on, right? You 3? Are you 7? You an 8? Right? Why is that, right? That's the first question. And then the second question is, what can you do to improve the number, right? So if you're 3, how do you get to a 4? If you're 7, how do you get to 8? I don't need you to get from a 3 to a 10, all right? I really don't. It's okay. You can be a 3 to a 4. I just want you to get better, right? One step at a time. So what do you need to do, right? Do you maybe need to take a little extra walks, get in the gym, eat right, get your hands out of the chips, stop drinking the sodas. I don't know. Put this stuff down, make the portion size smaller, right? Some of us are guilty of too much portion size, right? So maybe just eating the right things. So what do you need to do to improve that number physically and make yourself better physically? All right, you got that. And so many people are joining the show. Thank you so much for doing that. And then also, all right, so let's move on. You got your physical number, right? You got that number? Great. So now let's talk about your second number, your mental number. What do I mean by that? Well, we have 2 halves of our brain, right? Right, I studied psychology, so, and I taught psychology classes, and I love brain anatomy and function, right? So, we have this right brain and this left brain, and it's connected by this corpus callosum. I know I just got really geeky there, but that's okay. So you got to feed both halves of your brain, though, right? The right side of your brain's creative, the left side of your brain's logical. What are you doing to feed your brain, right? What are you feeding it, right? Are you feeding it garbage? Or are you feeding it good things? Like, this show is a really good thing. It actually exercises both sides of your brain because it makes you think creatively and it makes you think logically at the same time. But there's other ways to do that, right? You can read really good books. You can take up an instrument. You can learn a foreign language to exercise both halves of your brain. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it's got to be good things, right? Got to be consuming it with good things. So how are you doing? What's that number on a scale of 1 to 10? All right, so you got 2 numbers, right? You got a physical number, a mental number. And then what about emotionally? What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes you'll hear phrases and terms like emotional quotient or emotional intelligence thrown around. Basically, I just want to know, how well are you able to control your emotions? Okay? So do the little things bother you, right? Because, the truth of the matter is, right, you have complete control over your emotions if you want to, right? To blame someone else for how you feel is actually ridiculous, because the truth of the matter is you have a choice of how you want to feel. Because if somebody else controls how you feel, well, then they own you, and you don't want that, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, what's your emotional level? How well are you able to control your emotions, right? That's the first part of the emotional quotient, emotional intelligence thing. But the second part of it is, how well are you able to tune into the emotions of others, right? Can you relate to their emotions? Are you willing to relate to their emotions? All right, that's all part of that whole emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, where are you at emotionally? All right, you got your 3 numbers, right? Physical, mental, emotional, and then finally spiritually. And what do I mean by spiritually? Well, there are things that science and emotions and mental activity just can't explain. And when you take all that thing out, there's still stuff left, and that's probably a lot of spiritual stuff, meaning that there's things that we can't explain that center us and give us peace, and that we just don't completely understand, but that we know that there's something else there. And that's the spiritual side of you. And a lot of people believe in a lot of different things. So it could be God, it could be they believe in nature, they sometimes make themselves their own God, and they believe that they're in control of their own universe. And sometimes it's karma. It could be a variety of different things, right? But there is something out there beyond you. And I want to know what that is that you come back to center to doing. Okay? Whatever that may be. And if it is God, how's that number going for you on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And if it's nature, what's that number look like for you, right? So you have 4 numbers, right? You've got the physical, the mental, the emotional, spiritual. Well, those 4 numbers are like the legs of a table, right? And if that table's uneven and you have a plate on that table, it makes it kind of hard to eat, doesn't it? But at the same time, if the table's too low, right, and you're sitting in a normal chair, it also makes it difficult to eat off that table. So the whole goal for you is to raise them up evenly, being well balanced in all the areas of your life, because we also know that every other area affects every other area. And we do that. And that brings me to my next guest. My next guest is outstanding. His name is Bill Treasurer. He's the founder of Giant Leap Consulting, a courage building company, and the author of the international bestseller, Courage Goes to Work. And wow, we're going to do that today. He is the author of the Courageous Leadership Training Guide, the world's only off-the-shelf facility training program, and his courage building workshops have been taught to thousands of executives in 11 countries and 5 continents. He is unbelievable. For 2 decades, he's done leadership and success programs. He's worked in organizations such as NASA, Saks, Lenovo, eBay, UBS, the Pittsburgh Pirates, names that you may have heard of. I don't know, maybe once or twice you may have heard of. But yeah, he's worked with those. Prior to finding Giant Leap Consulting, Bill served as executive in Accenture's change management and human performance practice. I dare you to say that twice really quickly. And eventually became the $35 billion company's first full-time internal executive coach. He attended West Virginia University on a full athletic scholarship for springboard diving and earned his master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. Ladies and gentlemen, and also I need to say this because this is real important to Bill, and I know that it is. You know what? Probably the most important thing that he does, though, is that he's the husband to his wife, Shannon, and he's a father to their 3 amazing children, Alex, Bina, and Ian. And I know that's really important, too. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Bill Treasurer. Bill, welcome to A New Direction.
Jay Izzo, amazing. I'm already so psyched up. You've got me all frothy to do this. I can't wait. There's only one other place that I'd rather be right now,
okay,
and that is on a beach in Israel, and you've got us there too.
I do. It's so funny. I can't believe that. Okay, first of all, I'm in 24 countries around the world that download the show, right? So all you countries around the world, thank you for downloading the show. And I know so many of you are listening to me live, actually, in another country, or watching me live in another country. And I am really grateful to all of you because that was not part of the dream. Okay, I just thought we were going to do a really good show and I was going to help a lot of people. I had no idea that it would expand like this. So it's really kind of fun, Bill. I've really enjoyed it. So let me just say this. By the way, Bill Treasurer and his book, by the which I'm holding up there, everybody can see Courage Goes to Work, is brought to you today by who else? Inline business brokers and advisors. Are you a business owner? Well, at some point you're going to need the services of an experienced business broker. Selling your business is a huge decision. Make sure you build your deal team, starting with the internationally known experts at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more by going to inline.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors, no matter where you're at in the world. Right? Linda Craft can help you match up with the best expert to help you sell or buy your home. And if you happen to be in the Research Triangle Park, you can really learn why they are the legends of customer service when it comes to real estate. So check them out, and you can by going to lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And the T-shirt shot of the week is brought to you by Holt Physical Therapy. Yes, they have helped me. They can help you, and their motto is "We get you back in the game." And I tell you, they have, after 4 rotator cuffs torn on both shoulders, total knee replacement, and about 5 knee surgeries, I am still lifting as heavy and as hard as I ever have. And so I am so grateful to Holt Physical Therapy for what they've done for me. But they can do the same thing for you. They can get you back into the game, and we thank them for sending me the T-shirt. So we appreciate that. So Bill, we're back with Bill Treasurer and Courage Goes to Work. So Bill, first of all, I love this book. I didn't know for a second when I first read it. I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, What's he gonna do here? What's he trying to do? Is this, what's the goal here? What's he trying to do here? Right? And then I start reading the book and I go, oh, that's really good, right? And you don't get too far into the book when all of a sudden you realize you start talking about things like look before you leap in the first chapter, but then you go into this whole little jumping thing where you jump first and create safety and harness fear and modulate comfort, and we're gonna talk through that. I want to, because I think it's really important, but it's all part of this trust. I mean, it's all part of this courage, right? There's these three parts of courage: try courage, trust courage, and tell courage. So how do we start and put all those pieces together? Because I really want to jump in. So I'm going to let you start with us.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for honoring the work, right? Like I appreciate the homework that you did to get immersed in the book, and I very much appreciate it. And I think that the place to start for anybody when they're wanting to be more courageous is to think first about why put their courage mojo towards something in the first place. Yeah, you have to have a goal that is worthy of the application of your courage, something that you're trying to get done, or something you don't yet have but really want to have that is worthy of the application and activation of your courage. In my case, as you know, some of the backstory of me is, I mean, it really starts with my own, I guess call it an inadequacy, right? Like I've met a lot of radio interviewers and radio personalities who started out as stutterers. It's uncanny. It's a higher population of stutterers go into that business than normal. And I think it's the same for people like me. I have a profound fear of heights. And when you have some sort of limitation or something that's holding you back, it kind of pokes you in the chest like a schoolyard bully and says, hey, you're scared of me. What are you going to do about it? And then you have a choice. Am I going to like run away from my potential, or am I going to contend with this thing that is holding me back? And in my case, it was a profound fear of heights. But as you know from reading the book, I worked with a coach, literally a coach, a athletic coach, who helped me incrementally deal with my fear of heights, acquire a high board list of dives. I got a scholarship to college, but then I continued and I became a world-class high diver, diving from 100-foot platforms into small pools, traveling at speeds in excess of 50 miles an hour, into pools that were 10 feet deep, all because of a coach who held me accountable to my own potential and wouldn't let me walk away from that potential. And in the process, Jay, helped me discover my courage, and it turned me on to the whole idea of courage for the rest of my life. Now I help people and organizations take whatever metaphorical high dives they might be facing.
You know what I found interesting about this when I was reading this book, and you kept mentioning that you were with the USA high diving team and everything, and I was kind of going, okay, and you're afraid of heights. Because, okay, so I am too, by the way. I have this tremendous fear of heights. I don't make any bones about it. I tell people I get dizzy on a step stool, which is why I choose not to change light bulbs in my house. Is what and it gets me out of a lot of things. My wife doesn't believe it, but it's actually really true. But no, I mean, overcoming fear is hard. Because fear is not. I think the one thing that what I loved about when I was reading your book was I was going, the truth of the matter is fear does not go away. I mean, you have to just do it afraid. And you were talking about in the book how you gradually progressed to get to that point where you where you could actually get to the higher and higher heights and do it. And I was thinking about my psychology background, and we called that behavior through successive approximations, right? Where you were raising the level of the board higher and higher and higher. Mm-hmm. How do we do that in business, though? I mean, how do we do that in a business application where we do the successive approximations? I think you called it, you had a different name for it, something ups, lead ups.
Oh, lead ups, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the book that I wrote before Courage Goes to Work, I came into contact with a phrase called the mere exposure effect. The more you
Hmm.
get merely exposed to something over time, if you continue to expose yourself to it, you become desensitized to it. Now, you said something interesting there as well, as that, when you feel fear like that, you just got to do it. You still are afraid. This is one of the things that was
Right.
like a revelation for me when I was writing the book Courage Goes to Work. And remember, I was trying to figure out, why did a guy who was afraid of heights become a high diver? That was my
Right.
question to
Right. Right.
myself. And what I discovered is that courage is not the absence of fear. You see those bumper stickers, no fear, no
Right.
fear.
Right.
What I tell people is no brains, because that ain't courage.
That
Because
right.
courage is really afraid. When
Right.
you're afraid, and your knees are chattering, and your teeth are chattering, and your knees are knocking, and your skin is getting blotchy, and your palms are sweating, and your eyes are dilating, but you're doing the thing you're afraid of. That's what courage is. So
Right.
courage is fearful, not fearlessness. And so lead ups. No diver in their right mind would do one jump from 100 feet without first doing 100 jumps from 1 foot. You
Right.
incrementally, you desensitize yourself for one, but you experience and you modulate between comfort and discomfort. You go out into discomfort and you're uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But if you stay at that uncomfortable place long enough, you become comfortable with discomfort. And after a while, you may, in fact, grow bored. And boredom's a great clue. Boredom's a time to amp up the risk. And that's when you go and you raise the height higher. So you start with these little lead ups. You don't do a giant leap without first doing preparatory little lead ups.
Right. So here you used a phrase in your book called comfortable. I loved the phrase comfortable, right? Because I know that there is a default in us, and I understand why, and I want to hear I understand it psychologically. But let's talk about being comfortable in whether you're an employee or whether you're a manager. What do you mean when you say comfortable?
What I mean is, it's sort of a mixture between comfort, and comfort can settle in and can become contentment, but after a while that can become a dangerous proposition for a human being, because you need some level of excitement, you need some level of stirring things up, and to be able to move out into discomfort. But you can become comfortable with low level tolerance of fear, and you become comfortable in a fearful situation if it's at low levels for a long period of time. There's a lot of people who have sold their soul to big machine corporate environments that are unhappy, but strap on their clothes each day, clothes, and go to work with this low level tolerance for pain, and become comfortable. They become comfortable sort of in their tiny cage, and not willing to rattle the cage at all. I know you and I are just not that person. I
Right.
did
Right.
it for a while, but there were some significant life events that happened for me, and I just said, what, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to live this compromised way. But a lot of people do. It's a safe way out, even though it's uncomfortable, and it's comfortable and it's fearful.
Yeah, I feel bad for them. You and I before, what people don't know, I'm pulling back the curtain again on the show, but I talked to all the guests, and you and I were talking. I gave you the example that the truth of the matter is I've been very good at tell courage, and it's cost me at times where if I believe that someone is being hurt by what's being done, I will say this is wrong, and we need to re-examine that this is wrong because we're hurting, whoever in the process of whatever we're about to change here. And I don't care who you are. I've gotten in trouble, in large universities that will go nameless, that where I have just stated just quite bluntly and boldly, this is wrong. Why? And people will shrink away from this whole idea of how dare you say anything? Don't do that, right? Because you could be costing art. They're mad at me because I'm going to cost them their job, right?
Right.
right? It's that, but there's a fear. They've gotten comfortable where they're at, but they're afraid at the same time of being able to say anything because, ooh, you know what? Just let me do my job. Don't bother me. Don't make any waves. And
Yeah.
please, and for crying out loud, I know you're in my same department, so would you please shut up because you're going to ruin it for the rest of us, right?
Right. It's that person. They'll be sitting in their cubicle thinking low-level complaints to their friends around them. This place sucks. I don't want to work here anymore. My boss is terrible. And yet they're there for 20 years saying the same comments over and over and not doing any change in their own life, whether it means going to someplace else or doing something constructive to make it better. So they become fearable. They be sort of stuck in comfort and fear mixed together.
That's awesome. Hey, we're talking with Bill Treasurer. He wrote this book that I'm holding up that I know you can't see it, you podcast listeners. I know, and you Castbox FM listeners. I know you can't see it either, but you know what? The Facebook Live listeners can. Watchers. Well, they can be listening too. But if they want to look over to their computer, they can watch it, right? I'm talking to Bill Treasurer. He's a CEO. Chief Encouragement Officer. See what I did there? Well, actually, he did it. All right. And the book is entitled Courage Goes to Work, How to Build Backbones, Boost Performance, and Get Results. Beautiful book. This is the 10th anniversary edition that I'm holding up right now. The book is outstanding. I'm just going to tell you that it's more than a business book, first of all. Okay. This is a book that's going to affect your career. This is a book that's going to affect your life. You can take these same exact principles, you can apply them to your marriage, any relationships that you have, I don't care if this is a work situation, if you're part of a board that you're on, these principles apply. And the book is absolutely outstanding. It's available at Amazon, and it's also available at your favorite bookstore. If they do not have it at your favorite bookstore, ask them why and tell them to get it there immediately. And then tell them to face the book out, just as I'm showing it to you right now. Not the spine, the book, right? The full face of the book so that everybody can see it, because this is a great book. And it's going to be life-changing for you just as it has been for me, and you're going to love this book. And he's being brought to you today by Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. And Inline literally has helped thousands of clients in the sale and purchase of businesses, and when it's time to sell your business, contact the internationally known professionals at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors, and you can learn more by going to Enlign.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. No matter where you're at in the world, Linda Craft and her team can help you find the right real estate professional to help you sell or buy your next home. And if you happen to be in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Greater Research Triangle Park area, you know what? Why don't you go in and say hello and learn why they are the legends of customer service and experience. So we thank them and Bill as well for being here. So Bill, one of the things that you talk about early on in this book, and it's pretty early on, because this book's 3 sections actually, and which I love the way you did that you put this in 3 sections. But in that first section, you actually have this kind of graduating scale of behavior. Before we get to try, trust, and tell, you actually have this thing about, you got to jump and then we've got to create some safety. Talk to us about walking us through those stages and why that's important before we even start talking about courage.
Sure. And keep in mind, Jay, I'm 57 years old, so I don't remember the steps. So you may have to promise.
No, we're fine.
I know the first one is jump first. So the first thing you got, if you're trying to create a climate that encourages other people to be courageous themselves, then you've got to be the first one up and off whatever high dive platform you're asking them to take. You can't be remote from it, leading from afar. You got to be the first one up and off. You've got to role model the courageous behavior you're wanting to see in others, and I call that jumping first. Okay.
The next level you talk about is creating safety. And let me tell you something before you go into this, because the example that you gave of your daughter Bina, you call her Bina. Mm-hmm. And the trampoline, and I loved the story and how she found this safety on the trampoline. So here we jump right now. Talk about how that all relates to creating safety.
Sure. So creating safety, you as a leader or anybody in the workplace, but in particular leaders, you have the responsibility to make it a safe environment, like physically safe. Like people need to go to work and not have to worry that they're not going to come home at the end of the day. But more than that, you have to also create psychological safe environment where people are free to extend themselves, to voice their true opinions, to try new things, and be psychologically safe and feel supported by you as a leader. If you'd like, I can share the story about
I
Bina.
would love to. Yeah, I think it's a great story, and I think it makes a lot of sense because I love the application. So yes, please.
So my daughter Bina, as you know, because you read the book, she was born with cerebral palsy and she's deaf. And when she, she has a twin brother who has no physical challenges at all. And when Bina was little, it became evident that something was different, right? She wouldn't turn over, and my son Alex would turn over, and then my son Alex would crawl, Bina wouldn't crawl. Alex started walking, Bina was no longer walking. She never walked. And then around the time when she was about 5 years old, I got a trampoline in the backyard for Alex to teach him to become a diver like me and teach him to do somersaults and this sort of thing. And then I'd save a little bit of time for Bina, and I'd hold her little hands and I would just jump up and down. She'd giggle. By this time she had a cochlear implant so she could hear me and we would talk and such. But then one day, just for grins, on the trampoline, I stood behind her and I held her little hips. And, kids with CP wiggle. And she wiggled a little bit. And then I let go of her hips. And she took 1.5 steps and she fell down. And then she laughed. And I was like, wow, she laughed. She never did that before on the floor, so let me try it again. So I held her hips, and she took another 1.5 steps, fell down, no big deal. Did it a third time, she took 2 steps. Now I knew I was onto something, so I called to my wife who was up on our deck. I said, Shannon, please come down here. And she came down there, and we were both sitting on the trampoline about 5 feet apart, and we stood there with our arms apart, helping Bina walk back and forth between us, and she was falling down a lot. But that summer was no longer about teaching Alex how to become a high diver or a diver. It was about teaching my then 5-year-old daughter how to walk. I have videotape of her first steps, and it's on a trampoline. And this is now keep in mind, it's psychological safety. We created not permanent safety, but temporary safety. She couldn't walk on a trampoline for the rest of her life, but she could walk while she could gather some confidence, gain the experience of walking a little bit. And then we got a wrestling mat and put it on my upper deck. And we'd go out there with a piece of masking tape every day in the afternoon. This day she would take 5 steps. The next day she'd take 4. The next day she'd take 6. And now my daughter is walking as a child with CP. And I honestly believe it's because we created and we stumbled into it, Jay. It was not like intentional or by design.
Right.
We stumbled into the fact that creating psychological safety, even if it's temporary, in order to help people gain confidence to do the hard thing that you're going to have them do, it's essential to helping people do courageous things.
See,
And by the way, Jay, she's the most courageous one in the family. She loves like roller coasters and stuff. And I asked her one day, why do you do this? Why do you love him so much? She said, I like to get brave. She didn't say I like to be brave. She said, I like to get brave. Like you have to go out and get your bravery.
That's awesome. Bill Treasure is joining us, and when we're walking through your behavioral steps before we get into how you start dealing, how you get courageous, right? So we're doing some preparatory work here before we get courageous, right? And so we started by setting the stage here early on by, first of all, we got to jump first, right? Sometimes, Bill may not say this, I say this, and he may correct me, and I'm okay if he does that. But sometimes you got to leap a little bit before you look, and it's really true. And then you got to create some psychological safety, and maybe it's physical safety for some folks in your business. And then we have to harness fear, because we've talked about this a little bit briefly, but that's the next step you talk about is harnessing fear. So now, how do we harness fear?
Yeah.
What do you mean there?
Well, fear is not inert. It's energy. And it's powerful energy. It's just like anger is powerful energy, and fear is powerful energy. So what if you could convert those feelings of fear into feelings of excitement? And you can, and in fact you do. It is to the extent that you have what's called a psychological protective frame. If you feel that your inner constitution is strong enough and you gain confidence enough, you can withstand a tremendous amount of fear. The problem with fear is that a lot of times when people are afraid, they start getting fixated about how afraid they are. So they become fearful of fear, and then they drop into a panic attack. Whereas if you could reframe it and say to yourself, what actions can I take to build my confidence in this moment? instead of thinking about what do I need to do to subdue my fear. So we call that a protective frame. I'm gonna say something, Jay, and it might be controversial on your show, but I'm gonna frame it as a question. So
Sure.
here goes.
Let's go.
When you're really, really afraid physiologically,
Right.
what are the physiological symptoms you get when you're really afraid? Go ahead and tell me
Oh
yours.
yeah. Well, I could tell you that when I'm on top of that 12-foot ladder, which I hate, I
Yep.
could feel my palms sweat. I could feel even my head sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I get a little bit shaky. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have, even though my core is in really good shape, I all of a sudden don't have that same core strength. It feels like it's a little out of control, like I can't control. I feel like I'm moving when I'm probably not, but I feel like I'm shaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I have all these crazy stupid things of doubt that run through my head where it's like I all of a sudden have this thing of, oh man, what if I fall, right? All of a sudden I'm questioning all the bad things that can happen, right?
Right.
Right.
So I'll ask that same questions to groups of people. I'll say, they'll say same stuff. Palms are sweating, my head is sweating. I may not have full confidence. I might blank out. All these responses. Keep in mind when you're really, really afraid and you have those physiological feelings. Oftentimes they are the same physiological feelings that you will have before you have sex.
I know.
I just said sex
I love
on your
that.
show.
I love that.
Because both are high arousal states, and
Right.
there's no neurological difference between strong feelings of excitement and strong feelings of fear. In fact, they are neurological correlates that your body doesn't know the difference whether you're petrified or you're getting ready to go on a roller coaster. They are the same physiological responses. So that goes back to that fear is energy, right? So
Right.
what if you could convert it? You already do. When you go on a roller coaster, when you jump out of an airplane with a parachute, when you go to a scary movie, you're doing those things to feel fear, but in an excited way. If you could harness the energy of fear by converting it to feelings of excitement, and you do that by saying, not how can I subdue my fear, but instead saying, what are the actions I can take to build my confidence in this moment where I'm experiencing fear?
Mm, love that. Yeah, I don't think we think about when we're in these situations. I'm not thinking about harnessing fear when I'm on top of a large ladder, right? Like I had to change light bulbs the other day in the garage because my wife asked me to do it, and I hated doing it. As a matter of fact, I kept putting it off, right? Because I know how I'm going to feel when I get on top of even an 8-foot ladder. I know how I feel. I just feel insecure up there, and it's all sweaty, and I don't feel very good up there. It's just kind of one of my things, right? If I could harness that same, and you're right, the energy is the same. When we look at the brain scans and the brain imagery, the same places in the brain light up, when we're afraid, as do when we're having sex. I'm sorry, it's just really the truth. It's a reality, folks. Sorry, and my ratings of my show just went up because we've said the word sex 4 times now on this show, and people are like going, oh no, talk more about that. No, we're talking about his book. It's called Courage Goes to Work. So yes, we're talking about that. Anyway, but no, it's really true. Harnessing it is energy, and because we see it as negative energy, I don't think we think about harnessing it in that way. And that leads us then to the next part of this whole thing that you talk about, and that is modulate comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean by that?
What I mean, well, first of all, one of the things that I've learned in researching the book and now working with groups over time is that people don't grow in a zone of comfort. We talk about our comfort zone. By the way, I've searched far and wide to see who is the person who came up with that term, comfort zone. There was a book in the early 1990s named Comfort Zone, but it precedes that. The term does. I can't tell you who discovered that term, comfort zone, but it seems like everybody is searching to be in it. But that's not where you grow. We grow, progress, and evolve in a zone of discomfort, not comfort. I love what Ginny Rometty said. She's the CEO of IBM, and she was speaking to Fortune magazine's Most Powerful Women Summit, and she said, comfort and growth don't coexist. Comfort and growth don't coexist. So you've got to, if you want to grow and progress in your field, whatever it may be, whatever your practice and your discipline, your career is, you're not going to grow unless you get uncomfortable. But you can't stay out into the, using your analogy earlier from today, you don't need to be on level 10 of discomfort all the time.
Right.
Because it would be exhausting and it'd probably be unhealthy. But you've got to have some willingness to move out into discomfort on occasion, activate the sweat in your palms to make sure that you're still growing and advancing and not becoming apathetic and not becoming complacent. So you modulate, you go out into discomfort, you gain some skills, you're fully uncomfortable as you do. Over time, you will have those skills. You'll start to gain confidence sometime at some point. Boredom may set in, and boredom is a great clue that you need to amp it back up and move back into discomfort. So you're modulating constantly between comfort and discomfort. And if you're a leader, you got to be watching it. You got to watch your team. When your team starts to get bored, complacent, apathetic, they need a new goal. They need a new challenge. And when they're too out there and really skittish, then sometimes you need to pull it back and put some comfort into the equation.
We're talking with Bill Treasurer. He's author of this outstanding book, available Amazon, favorite bookstore. By the way, it's a bestseller. By the way, it's translated in a number of languages as well. So for those of you who are listening around the world, you can actually get this book possibly in your language. Why don't you check it out? It's called Courage Goes to Work, and it's the 10th anniversary edition. Do you know, I love it when my guests / friends read my mind, and you just did it, because we're jumping ahead a bunch here, and I said, when I wrote you about this, and you talk about the season of hibernation, and you talk about, and I love your words, I love your wording, because I believe I do the same thing when I go out and speak, and that is that you're edutaining, you know.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, right? You do this whole blended learning, you know, lecturettes and right, that whole thing. So you're speaking at this group. And I'm going to read this. It says, but I here to tell you, there was nothing I could do to spark this team out of their funk. They were comfortable to the point of erosion. and so I thought to myself, wow, therein lies the danger of getting too comfortable, right? Because they literally went into the season of hibernation where, right, I see this in salespeople. I know you do too, right? They make a whole bunch of sales, and then they get into this hibernative state where they just, you know, they kind of just live off their past, and they're going to they're going to do what they're going to do, right? That whole thing. And so you're talking about this. So let's talk about the sales team that, and let's do a real world example here. Let's talk about the sales team that has gotten overly comfortable, and they're in that season of hibernation. What do we do?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, it's funny. Sometimes success begins the downfall. You know, when you've had a couple of successes in a row, you start to get cocky, and now you can become complacent. I can remember one time in my own life, I had won the Eastern 3-meter diving championships. And I was the first diver in West Virginia University history to do that. And when I came back, and that was like on a weekend, and then I came back Monday to practice, and I strutted onto that pool, man. I was a peacock in my Speedo. Here I am. I'm going to go up and prove to my team, look at me. I'm the best diver on the East Coast on the 3-meter, and I'm going to go on that 3-meter, and I own the 3 meters all over the East Coast because I am the best. And then I got up there, and I did a simple dive, a reverse dive, and I got lost in the air like an upside-down stink bug, my legs and arms flailing, and I smacked on the top of the water right there in front of the entire team. And it's exactly what my ego needed. It's like, you know, the universe has a way of giving you a reverberation when you get cocky, right? And I think sometimes when a team is successful, and they know it, right? They got it going on. Then they start to become complacent, or they'll experience an ego downfall like I did in that humiliating moment.
Right.
So what does the team need to do? The team needs to mix it up. That's when the team they may need to put people in different roles. They may need the coach and working with the team might need to brush up on their goals. They might need to refresh their goals. They might need to give what I call, Jay, a gulp goal, a goal that is so challenging and scary that it makes you go, gulp.
I love that. Goals. That's brilliant. I love that. Here's the thing. The thing about this book, and the thing about the way you wrote it, is I love the practicality of the book, because the book is really extraordinarily practical and it just makes so much sense. And I really enjoyed that piece of it. The book is entitled again, Courage Goes to Work. So let's start digging in because we've got about 20 minutes left or so here. So let's dig into courage. Let's talk about the three types of courage. And you're very, very clear. There's try courage, trust courage, and then there's tell courage. And we've already kind of let people in a little bit on the door, tell courage, but we'll go into that a little bit later. But let's talk about try courage.
Sure.
So what do we mean by try courage? What does that look like? And how do we get through it?
Sure. And let me just pin this for a moment, that when I wrote the book, the publisher, I actually had 4 buckets of courage, and the publisher said, Bill, people remember things in threes. I don't think you need this 4th bucket of courage. So I nixed it, but we can come back to it. And for your listeners,
can we do a bonus? Can we do a bonus bucket?
You guys will get a bonus bucket just for your audience.
I love that. We get a bonus bucket. Oh, that's awesome.
But try courage is the first bucket of courage, and by the way, the reason these 3 buckets of courage matters is a lot of people hear the term courage and they think it's reserved for heroes. Like we're going to experience the 50th anniversary of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, and that's a heroic, courageous thing and so people look at that and they're like, I'm not courageous. That guy walked on the moon. Or I'm not courageous. I never have run up a hill charging at the enemy with a machine gun in my hands. I'm not courageous. I never run into a building on fire. If you compare it against those things, it might be true, but there is an accessible, everyday, more tempered experience of courage that anybody could and should experience. So I break courage down into at least these 3, maybe 4 behavioral buckets that I call the 3 buckets of courage. The first one is try courage. It's the courage of first attempts, the courage to do something you haven't done before. Other people may have crossed this threshold. They're on the other side of doing this thing. But for you, since it's your first time, it takes action and energy and overcoming inertia, and it may come with failure. You could wipe out and hurt yourself doing the thing. But if you don't do the thing, you won't be able to join the community on the other side of the threshold that is already doing the thing. So it might be, the first time you drove a car, or if you started your own business, or when you bought a house. It could be any manifestation of trying something that was a foreign experience to you up until the moment you crossed the threshold and tried it. It was the courage of first attempts.
All right, so let's you and I have a little fun here with try courage. All right, because I can hear people. They're by the way, they're not saying this. I'm watching everybody live on Facebook Live and also watching people here on Castbox FM Live. So they're not saying this, but I know that they would say this, and that is, well, Bill. I mean, some people are just born who are more courageous than others, right? I mean. You mean, because I'm not born with all that courage. What do you have to say to that, Bill?
I'd say that it may seem like that. I also think it's a little bit of a cop-out, because I think what happens is that people are like, well, I'm not courageous, but look at so-and-so. They're so courageous. Well, the truth is, I believe that every human being gets to experience their courage in some area of their life. But when you are being courageous, and if you do it consistently over time, for you in that area, it won't look like courage. For you, it's just like, well, I can do that. That's not hard for me. Like for me, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine with speaking in public. I've done it since I was a kid. I'm not kidding, Jay, when I tell you this. My mom and dad used to make me stand on my head in a clown outfit singing The Rain in Spain at cocktail parties when I was like 5 and 6 years old.
There we
That's
have
not it. Now, aside from the therapy bills that I had to pay later in life, it taught me how to be comfortable in front of audiences. And then I did 2,000 performances with the U.S. high diving team in front of groups from 2,000 to 40,000. So speaking in public, which is a type of courage, is not hard for me.
Right.
But speaking up to a boss or an authority figure is still kind of hard for me. Right. So I think that sometimes people see other people and judge their outsides by their own insides and think, well, I'm not courageous, but that person is. But I'll bet if I dug around deep enough and long enough, I would find a piece of courage in everybody's life, and they might not even recognize it as courage because it's not hard for them.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I am a firm believer in that you just have to, sometimes you just have to just do it, right? I mean, you just have to just go. And you're going to have to do it afraid. Sorry. I mean, the try courage is about doing things afraid, and
Yeah.
you just have to be committed to it and go. All right, whatever happens, happens. I'm going for it, man. And because I think so often people stop at try courage. They never get to trust courage or tell courage because they can't get past try courage. In my
Mm.
opinion, just based on how you've written the book. And the reason why they never get to trust or tell is because they can't try. And it's because they get so frozen that they get stuck, right? And so which is why, I do shows like this and have guests like you to help people get unstuck so that they will ultimately try courage and do that. And I people just got to you just got to commit to it and go sometimes, man. I mean, that's all you could do. I mean, you gave the example. So often what we try to do is we try to shame people or punish people to get them to motivate, but that's not the way reinforcement punishment works, right? Punishment actually is supposed to stop the behavior, not make the behavior go. And so, when you talk about it in the book, right? You're encouraging you to try, right? Is what we're trying to do, encouraging people to do it afraid. By the way, and we're talking with the author of this unbelievable book called Courage Goes to Work. His name is Bill Treasure. He is a CEO. He's a Chief Encouragement Officer. I love it too. So I know you do. And by the way, the book is outstanding. It's fabulous. We're just starting through the different buckets of courage, right? We just gone through Try Courage. And he's brought to you today by Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. And I want to tell you something about Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. Inline Business Brokers and Advisors represent profitably privately held companies with gross annual incomes and revenues in excess of $1 million. Inline delivers the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with complete confidentiality. That is their registered trademark. So if you want to learn more about the internationally known business brokers, literally it's Inline, and you need to just go to inline.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. No matter where you're at in the world, Linda Craft and her team can help you find the right home or help you sell your home by matching you up with the best expert in your area. And if you happen to be in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Research Triangle Park area, why don't you stop into 7300 Six Forks Road in Raleigh and find out why they have legendary customer service. And they are bringing you Courage Goes to Work and Bill Treasure, who we are so honored to have here on A New Direction. So, Bill, we've talked about Try Courage. Now let's talk about trust courage.
Right. So, you can't have strong bonds of interpersonal relationships without trust. And it's hard. It's hard to entrust other people because there's always a risk that they could betray you or let you down. So hence therein lies the courage, is how do I get to a place where I can trust somebody,
Right.
get disarmed? And there's a certain degree of emotional vulnerability. I'm exposed. I'm going to lay it all on the line. I'm going to entrust you with something, my heart, or maybe a task. I don't know. I'm going to entrust you. Now it's up to you. And if you mess up or betray me, now I'm the fool. So we all have been betrayed at some point and start to put little bricks around our heart, and we start to say, once a fool, shame on you, twice a fool, shame on me, I'm not going to trust again.
Right.
And we start building trust stalemates with other people. But if you can't get to trust, and this takes courage, because we get jaded, it becomes really hard to do. How do I learn to trust again after I've been betrayed? But if you can't get there, you're not going to have strong interpersonal relationships with the people around you that you need. And if you're a leader, you need to have strong relationships with the people that you're leading and loyalty. And it won't come if you can't learn how to trust.
Mm-hmm. Such a huge 5-letter word, is it not? It's a huge 5-letter word that we have so many different philosophies. I've taught this at the college level, where I've said, trust is like respect. It's not earned, it's given. Because and I will have students say to me all the time, "Oh, no, you have to earn my trust." And I said, "Really?" I said, "So give me the list. What's the list of everything that I need to do to get your trust?" And let me write it out, and they'll put it on the board, right, for me. And I'll go, "Okay, I'm going to do all these things. At the end of the day, you still choose to trust me or not. If I do every one of those things, you still have a choice. You do not have to trust me just because I do everything you want me to do."
Right. Yeah, I'll ask that. It's interesting you say that, Jay. I ask a lot of groups that I work with, I'll have them fill in the blank to this statement. I will trust you when dot
Right.
dot dot, and then I have them give me their criteria to that question. And so many people are, I will trust you when you prove it to me, when you
Right.
follow through, and you do this. Like everybody has to dance for you to
Right.
until you trust. But we hardly ever consider the other side of the equation is, am I a trustworthy person? Am I
Right.
worthy of trust?
Right.
Am I? Do I act in ways that are worthy of the people's trust that they'll be giving me? And we don't. We often we're so fixated on the other person. I don't know if I could trust them or not. That we don't think about, am I somebody who is doing trustworthy things?
Well, I think one of the great points you make in the book, and I really hope people get this from you, is that you said so often people will come to you and say, well, trust is something that you have to develop over time, and then you kind of really just rip that whole thing apart by going, yeah, well, although I can walk into a meeting where they don't even know me and they will tell me their deepest darkest secrets in 3 minutes, right? They're going to trust me, but they're going to trust me with their crap in like 3 minutes, right? So I mean, this whole idea that it's got to develop over time is just erroneous, right?
Right. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'll work with a group of people. I'll walk in, and then the 30 minutes I've known, like I'll do one-on-one coaching sessions, right? And speaking to somebody I've never spoken to before. And within 30 minutes, they're telling me stuff about their work environment that they haven't told their own bosses or the people around them for, 20 years. Now, sometimes it might be fear, but sometimes it's a matter of they're willing to disclose with me, but they're only willing to show one sense of their self, one dimension of themselves in their work life, and then leave their humanity at the front door.
I'm sorry, but it's true. Okay, go ahead, keep going. I keep going because it's true. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but I mean it's so true that they do this. All right, were you going to add more to that, or was that?
No, only that courage that you can see how courage is needed, right? Like
Right.
when it comes to trust, because we'll break it down and make it really simple. A lot of managers, a lot of first-time managers struggle with delegation. Like, if I delegate to this person and they screw up, now I got to do the work. And by the way, I could have
Right.
done it quicker myself. And so I'm going to hover over them instead and micromanage what they're doing because I don't want them to drop the ball. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. Like, Jay, one of the things I'll ask audiences when I'm doing a keynote is I'll say, how many of you in the room have ever been described as or would describe yourself as controlling? And
Mm.
a lot of hands go up, and so does mine, by the way. And then I ask people a second question. How many of you absolutely love to be controlled by people? And then no hands go up. And it's the more controlling you are as a person, the less you personally like to be controlled.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of times people that have a hard time trusting have big control issues that they are, and that's the hard part. How do I give up control because I might get hurt? And it's one thing to get physically hurt and scrape your knees, but man, when you get emotionally hurt and hurt in the heart, whew, that's some serious kind of pain. So people avoid it by not giving their trust because they're afraid of getting betrayed.
I see this too. I see this too when I'm consulting CEOs or founders or owners of a business. I see this all the time that they're such control freaks.
Mm.
And they don't want to give up that control because they feel so responsible, right? And then you probably have done the same thing when you walked into a corporation or a business, right? And you're doing your consulting, and you walk in, and this person's a complete control freak and is micromanaging everything, has some sort of system for the system for the system, right? That they're doing, right? And you're going, right? You don't trust anybody, right? And he'll say, oh no, I trust my people. I really do trust my people. I go, really? Well, it's interesting because you're doing everything, and somebody who does everything doesn't trust their people, right?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and they can't. It's hard for them to let go. What do you say to them? What's been your way of handling it? I know what I do, but I mean, what do you do to encourage trust, courage?
Yeah, I wish I could say that there was a silver bullet for it. I can tell you this, that I was not accused, but rightly given feedback that I was a micromanager. I'd done a 360-degree feedback where my people were rating me, my peers were rating me, and my boss rated me. And my direct reports, the most consistent feedback was that I'm a micromanager. And so I sat down with them, not to like get them in trouble, but to sit down with them. And I'm like, help me. Like, I don't want to do this. So please help me. Give me some examples of when I've done it. And they gave me some good and useful examples. In my own work with leaders, I have to say the most common way of overcoming this need to control or this need to not or to micromanage is desperation. They get what happens is they end up taking on everybody's work because they want to do it to perfection and they don't trust anybody around them. And they get so swamped and so in the thick of the quicksand of that at some point the only way to cry uncle is to say, you know what, like a a swear word. They say F it. I have no choice.
Right.
I'm gonna delegate this to you. I hope you can get it done good. Please report back to me 4 days from now. Let me know how it went.
Right.
I gotta go on to these 3 other things that I took on that I shouldn't have taken on.
Right.
And it's that desperation. And when they find out that the person didn't drop the ball and in fact did a competent job, they become much more willing than the next time to give it to somebody and somebody else, et cetera. So sometimes you have to learn the negative consequences of being over controlling and delegating and not delegating, micromanaging. And you suffer those consequences and it stings enough that you say, you know what, it's not worth it. I got to learn how to do this.
You know what I find so fabulous about this book is that while you're in Trust Courage, you actually have to go back to Try Courage, don't you? Right? I mean, that's what I found was fabulous about you is that here you are trying to develop Trust Courage, but you actually have to go back to Try Courage so that you can trust.
Right.
And it's
you have to take the risk, step over the threshold, and try something that is new and foreign and uncomfortable for you, because it's going to be the way that you're going to be able to experience it and gain the benefit from it and do it again.
And we're back to fear, right? I mean, the reason why somebody's controlling is because they're afraid of relinquishing control. So, right? So we're back to the fear-based thing. I've got to try to get over my fear, right? So I'm going to have to, so I got to do it afraid again, right? So we got to, this is the beauty of your book. I mean, the beauty of your book is these things are so well entwined, these buckets. I mean, literally, there's a bucket pouring inside a bucket pouring inside a bucket, and it's in this circular bucket pouring thing. I know that's crazy, but it really is, because it really does. It's that incredible, and which is why I love this book entitled Courage Goes to Work by Bill Treasure, who I am talking to right now. And by the way, do you hear in his voice why he's a CEO? Chief Encouragement Officer. Yeah, see what he did there? So do you hear it? Because he's an encouraging guy. And you know what he says in his book? He says in his book, you know what an encourager does? It literally means to give the other person your courage, right? And sometimes that's what we need to do, is we need to give other people their courage. And we're going to get to the next part of courage. Do you have time, Bill?
Sure. I'm loving it.
Okay, are you good?
And you just turned my book into an Escher picture.
Nobody's ever said that to me on the show before, ever. That's pretty awesome. By the way, thanks to everybody who's joining us live. I mean, I can't mention all your names because they're all over the place here. Castbox FM, which we are doing a live cast right now, and of course we're on Facebook Live, and of course all you people who are downloading the show, thank you for joining us as well. So let's move right into Tell Courage, right? Because this is the one where I think we fear the most. This is where I've gotten myself in trouble, is telling, is having the courage to say something to your CEO, maybe saying something even to your spouse, right? Let's be honest there, right? Sometimes we have to have courage to tell the truth to the spouse, here's what's going on, or I don't approve, or I don't like, or whatever the question may be, right? Let's talk about Tell Courage.
Yeah. So the third bucket of courage, and it's the courage of the truth teller. Now, we often think of, like, I'll ask groups before I even go into the 3 buckets of courage, give me some examples of courage in their workplace, and like 9 out of 10 of them are about somebody saying something that nobody else had the courage to say. And this is this bucket. This is Tell Courage, the courage of voice and assertiveness, the courage of the truth teller. You know what's interesting is I have some friends, Barry Posner and Jim Kouzes, who wrote a book called The Leadership Challenge, sold millions of copies, and they continue to be preeminent researchers in the area of leadership. And they will tell you that cross-culturally, people, when you ask people what they look for and admire in a leader, the number one attribute that we seek in a leader is honesty. We want the truth teller. We want the honest leader in front of us who is square to us and tells us like it is. And yet, when we think about it ourselves, honesty ain't so easy. Like you just mentioned, your spouse. And if your spouse says, honey, do I look fat in this dress?
Danger.
Danger. Or in my case, honey, is my bald spot getting bigger? We do socially appropriate lying all the time, and we're taught to since we're a little kid. Don't talk back to don't talk back to your elders, and some of the earliest messages are about biting our tongue and being diplomatic.
If you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all.
I still get that from my wife. She's literally, I love my wife. She's fantastic, and she has made me a better man. And she still says stuff like that to me. I guess I don't say enough nice things. But this idea, it takes courage to be a truth teller, and a lot of people learn to bite their tongue to go along and get along. And as I mentioned before, try courage comes with the risk that I might wipe out and hurt myself. Trust courage comes the risk that you might wipe out and hurt me by your mistake or betrayal. And then tell courage is, if I say this delicate but honest thing, I might get cast outside of the group. The tribe of which I'm a member might push me out and say, we don't like your views. They're not consistent with ours anymore. You don't belong here. And we all love to be part of a tribe. We love feelings of belonging and membership. And so if I say the honest, truthful thing that I'm feeling, how will the group react? And so a lot of times we bite our tongues because we don't want to be cast out. We don't want the repercussions of being a truth teller. Now, there are people on the other side of that, like you, Jay. Like honesty is one of your full buckets of courage. A lot of people are not that honest, and for the reasons that I just mentioned. So I think that each person is sort of strong in one bucket and deficient in other buckets, or one other bucket. And what we need to do is try to borrow from our confident bucket into the areas where we don't have as much confidence.
Yeah, and this is where I really felt like the buckets kind of all spill into each other, right? Because you talk about this in the book. By the way, the book's called Courage Goes to Work. How to build backbones, boost performance, and get results. I think this is where the buckets kind of spill into each other. And one of the things you do make a real big deal is sometimes you've got to use a bucket that you're actually more full of, and you've got to use that to help you get through maybe one of the other buckets, or maybe you're full of two buckets and you're weak in another bucket, and you need to use those to help gain some control over the other buckets. I think tell courage, though, and one of the things that you say, and I think this is the obvious thing, there's two sides to this. I love what you said about introverts and extroverts. We have a tendency to say there's one another, and the truth is it's a continuum. The fact of the matter is you have a little bit of both, and you just lean a little heavier one way, but given the right incident or the right situation, you're going to be a little bit more introverted, you're going to be a little bit more extroverted. It's not an either or. It's not two sides of a coin. It's actually one coin. It's just that we do that. And I think I think the truth is that this is true with tell courage. I think that given the right circumstances, I think people will have the freedom to be honest. I think when they get into their job, and this is my experience, and I think hopefully it is your too. I know it is, because this is what you wrote about. But I think when it comes to their job, they're so afraid of losing their job that they're afraid to tell the truth to the people they need to tell the truth to. So then it becomes water cooler fodder. Right? And so we don't do it.
Right. Yeah. So then it spills out in other sort of what would we call it, malproductive ways, that are not that are more destructive than constructive. And sometimes people will ask me, so what do I do? I've got a boss who I can't speak up to, What do I do about that? So what I tell people is when you're having your performance review with your boss, or even if you're just recalibrating your goals, or some career conversation you're having with your boss about you, ask your boss during that conversation, hey boss, I just want to be clear. Do you need me to, sort of agree with everything you say, or is it okay if I occasionally, disagree with you?
Mm.
Now, I'm telling you, Jay, I got to think at least 95%, maybe more, of leaders are going to say, no, I don't need you to disagree with me or agree with me. I need you, in fact, to sometimes disagree with me. I don't
Right.
want another yes person and sycophant around me. No, please, you've got to be able to disagree with me. Then your commitment is to say, you know what, I'll honor this commitment with you, boss. I just need some guidance from you. I need some coaching from you. What's the best way for me to disagree with you in a way that your ears won't hear it as disrespect of your leadership?
Right.
And then your boss will give you some coaching. They'll say, don't do it when I'm getting ready to go into the board meeting. Don't do it when don't do it in front of the other team members during the
Right.
staff meeting. They'll give you the coaching. So then you fast forward 6 months from now when you actually do have to disagree with your boss, and then you take them aside and you say, hey, boss, remember when we made that commitment that day that you don't want to be surrounded by another yes person, and you said that it's part of my job, in fact, to disagree with you. I'm going to honor the commitment that I made that day with you with what I have to say next. So
Mm.
basically what you're doing is you're setting a ground rule. As long as you set the ground rule with your boss and they were involved in the crafting of the ground rule, and they know that what to expect because they gave you the coaching on it, you'll be able to be way more honest than if you never have that conversation with your boss.
I didn't do that, Bill. I wish I had that conversation.
I'm glad you didn't, because I don't know you'd have this show if you had that, and I'd much rather have you do this than what you were doing.
Bill, I didn't do that with my boss. I just kind of blurted it out and said, this is wrong. And it didn't go so well. No, I disagree with you. What do you mean? I would say it right in the middle of the meeting. No, I don't agree. I think, okay, yeah, well, that cost me, you know. But I mean, I wish I'd had that conversation. I wish I had that conversation up front and said, hey, listen, what do you want from me? Do you want me to be, you know what though? It wouldn't have worked, Bill, for me because I could not be a yes person. I just can't do it. I
Right.
can't. I
And you
can't do
shouldn't
it.
be, right? Like, as a matter of principle, you shouldn't be a yes person. I- That said, you can get coaching from your boss on how can you
Right.
be a person that has occasional disagreements, but in a way that they will see it, in fact, as
Right.
respect, that they'll see it as that they've deputized you to be a check on them. With their full permission, and then they're an advocate of the truth that you might tell them. And part of it is being a velvet hammer. Sometimes you
Right.
got to, put more velvet, and sometimes you got to put more hammer.
Do you know what I love about this principle though? Because it's so applicable to any relationship actually. Because what if people were to tell their significant other up front and go, "Can we have a talk about honesty? Because I need to know what is the best way for us to handle honesty going forward."
Mm,
Because I mean, I'm just thinking about the marriage. I'm just thinking about the marriage piece of this, right? What
mm,
if you could go into your husband or your wife, and you were able to say to your spouse before you were married, "Can we talk about how we're going to handle honesty? How do you want me to handle that with you? Like if there's a situation where I feel like I really need to say something, what's the best way for me to handle that with you?" What would the marriages be like? What would the
mm.
relationships be like if we handled that business up front, just like you described? What would that be like that we would have that permission instead of, sometimes using anger and then it gets explosive, right? Because that's what happens so often when we're telling the truth is that we can often be explosive out of anger because we've had enough and we've built up resentments and that resentment builds up and then the next thing we know, we're being honest, but it's not a velvet hammer. Matter of fact, what it is, it's a great big giant sledgehammer with razor blades all over it, right? And we're swinging it wildly because we've built up all these resentments and let it go. What would it be like if we were able to just do tell courage up front like that?
It'd be beautiful, right? And back to the Escher thing, it would also fortify the trust between you, because it's a really beautiful moment when you can be that honest.
Yeah.
But being that honest has a degree of emotional exposure. You're getting disarmed, and you're saying, "Look, I've got no weaponry here. I'm just here, another human being in front of you, wanting to connect differently, and here's my full honesty." That's a really vulnerable place to be. You come out of it, I think, with much deeper levels of trust between the two of you.
I love that. I mean, that's beautiful. By the way, we're talking with Bill Treasure, and in his book here, Courage Goes to Work, and unbelievable book. And we've just gone through the 3 buckets of courage. Bill, I've kept you way over time, and I am so sorry. And
No, don't be no apology needed, dude. I've so enjoyed this. I continue to enjoy it. Take as much time as you need.
So, Bill,
and I also know that there are people in Israel on the beach listening to us.
Ronit's on a beach.
So I got to give him everything they deserve, and the sun out there.
Yeah, she's on a beach, and Ronit's on a beach in Israel, and she said, "Would you please?" She said, and she knows she has this beautiful Israeli accent, right? And she said, "Will you please mention my name?" And it's like, "Okay, sure," right, man. And so I think her whole family's probably listening to the show in Israel right now in Tel Aviv, so outside of Tel Aviv. So I appreciate them doing that. So. Can we do the bonus piece? What was the bonus?
Yeah,
Let's do the bonus bucket.
I'm glad you remembered. Yeah. So what I find this. So it was in the original book, and then the publisher, hemmed and hawed and strongly encouraged me to take it out. And then I started doing courage building workshops, and inevitably, basically the same topic would come up. People would raise their hands and ask about it, and they would say, it's one thing to have the courage to say something to someone, but it takes courage also to hear what the person has to say and not get defensive and not want to argue about it, but just take the feedback. And so I call this bucket take in courage. So try, trust, tell, take in. And this is when you receive feedback that runs counter to how your current perception is of yourself. Then do you reject it and fight it off and blame the other person and feel like a victim, feel verbally assaulted? Or do you ingest the feedback and consider it and use it as a gift and maybe change your identity as a result of the feedback? Now, by the way, this feedback can be not just negative. It might be positive feedback. A lot of times you'll give women a compliment, whereas you give men a compliment, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I know I did that thing. I did it myself too." But if you say it to a woman, they're like, "Oh, it was no big deal. It wasn't even me. There's plenty of other people involved. Seriously, it's not a big deal." And they are not good at taking a compliment. So sometimes it's, whatever the feedback may be, to be able to just sort of say thank you, not feel like your identity is threatened, consider the change that maybe the feedback is impelling you to make, and be able to take it courageously, right? And that's not easy to do. There are some people that are just super sensitive to feedback. I've seen it. I guess occasionally I've done it. And sometimes it matters who is the mouth that's giving me the feedback too, because there might be somebody that I don't trust or somebody who I don't frankly like, and then 2 weeks later I'll get the same feedback at a party from somebody else, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, you know what, you're right about that." So this idea of being able to take in feedback, and it's different. It's more of like it is a bit introverted, if you will, in that tell courage, I'm voicing something. Try courage, I'm sort of doing something action oriented. Trust courage is a little bit of vulnerability, and that could have some introversion to it. But take in, I'm really having to take that feedback, positive or negative, and consider it without feeling threatened.
So it's taking in, it's having the courage to take in whatever that criticism, right? And my wife is so like you probably have this wife who actually speaks truth into your life and makes you a better human being. Mine certainly does that. And she will constantly say to me, in every criticism there's a hint of truth. Can you find the truth in the criticism? And because no one likes to be criticized, right? I mean, you and I write books and we speak, and sometimes people are not very kind to us because we're out in the
Right.
public eye and not. But I have to. Even though people can be critical, I have to look for the truth in that, right? I mean, isn't that part of having the courage to take a look at the criticism honestly and going, okay, you know what? Okay, maybe they didn't phrase it right, but yeah, there's some truth in here that I need to fix.
Yeah, find the nugget of the truth. I remember on Amazon once with my first book, Right Risk, it's called. I'm fond of the book. I'm proud of all my books. They're like babies. But that book to this day holds a 5-star review. But one person gave it a 3-star and said that it should be called self-righteous risk.
I'm sorry.
Because they're like, I was like preachy. And, it was my first book. I was in my young 30s. And I look back at it now and I look back at it then. And I've said, okay, I don't love that feedback, but I could see where they're coming from.
Sure.
And I could see there are places in that book where I'm, pointing my finger at the reader and wagging it, right?
Right.
And that was helpful because it helped me. I still need to make points to the reader sometimes, and
Sure,
in fact,
sure.
sometimes I need to provoke the conscience of the reader. But I do it differently than I did then. But first, I almost always now start with vulnerability by opening up something about me that is imperfect before I ever turn to the reader and invite them to think about themselves. But that piece of feedback was good. Versus, sometimes you will get feedback that's really, you have to think about it, maybe not so credible. So on a different book, somebody put on Amazon, they, again, 5-star book, actually, I think it was Courage Goes to Work, and they said, are we really going to take advice from somebody who worked at Anderson, the company that supported Enron? Okay, so I worked at Anderson Consulting, and
Right.
they were talking about Arthur Anderson. It was a
Right.
wholly different company
Right.
that, in fact, we had sued. Anderson Consulting had sued Arthur Anderson and won the lawsuit and lost our name, and we changed the name to Accenture. So this person was giving me feedback about something that was not factual in any way, shape,
Right.
or form. I did not work at Arthur Anderson, and even the comment itself was stupid and ridiculous. Because we're going to trust somebody who supported Enron. I didn't support Enron, nor did I support the company that So you will get feedback. And by the way, I asked Amazon to remove that one, and they did.
Really?
They did.
How about that?
Because I was like, hey, dude, I'm fine with negative feedback. Here's proof. Here's the one about my self-righteousness over here. But here's some feedback that's not true, and I think that's it's kind of like fake news, and they took it off.
Good for you. Hey, this is Bill. You're talking with. I'm talking with him. You're listening. His name is Bill Treasure. He wrote this outstanding book, Courage Goes to Work. Huh? What do you think? He gave us an extra bucket, right? Right? Take in courage. He gave us the extra bucket. And by the way, he's not done yet, but I got to do this, right? Listen, we're going overtime here, and Bill has been so gracious to go overtime. So you know what? If I go overtime, I have to just also say thank you to our sponsors because they pay to keep me on to do on the show, and they pay for the show, and I'm grateful to them, right? I mean, Inline Business Brokers and Advisors, who is the very first sponsor of the show. They're internationally known. They're one of the most premier business brokers in the world, and here they are sponsoring my show a year ago, right? Because the show is now a year old, and it has grown by leaps and bounds, and they have literally helped thousands of people in the sale and purchase of businesses. They only represent profitable privately held companies with gross annual revenues in excess of $1 million. They do deliver the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with complete confidentiality. It is the registered trademark. Learn more by going to enlign.com. It's enlign.com. Jeff Snell and his people are outstanding, and I'm very grateful for them to sponsor the show. And also Linda Craft and Team Realtors. They're located in Raleigh, but they can help you anywhere in Raleigh, North Carolina. But they can help you anywhere in the world. Listen, they are known for having legendary customer service when it comes to real estate. Why don't you check them out by going to lindacraft.com. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And they've brought you this great book, Courage Goes to Work, and this amazing person, Bill Treasure, who and I don't mind saying this on the air. I've fallen in love with him, and I read his book. It brought me to tears. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just going to tell you that if you buy this book, it's going to be life-changing on every level. So, Bill, before I let you go,
Yeah.
I ask every one of my friends, because now we're friends, because we've been on for an hour and 18 minutes, and not counting the time we spent before, and it feels like such a short period of time, and it makes me sad because I don't want you to go.
I've enjoyed it, Jay. Truly, I do a good bit of interviews, whether it's podcast or radio, and this was a special one. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, because I got to tell you, you've been so amazingly gracious, and I'm grateful. I ask every guest / friend, because you're a friend now, because we've talked a long time. The show's called A New Direction because we try to help people find a new direction in their life or their career or their business. And if Bill Treasure, author of Courage Goes to Work, if he were to give the folks out there a new direction, what would Bill Treasure say?
I'll give your listeners two words. The first two words are something that a priest one time told me, and they've stuck with me forever. And he put his hands on my head and he said, "Bill, you've got to remember personal fidelity, and his whole point was that you've got to have faithfulness with yourself. And he didn't mean it in a selfish way. He meant in a self-respectful way and in a self-goodness way. To honor your dreams, be faithful to your dreams, have personal fidelity." And I think that those two words are really powerful. The other two words that inform those two words are, whenever you're facing something hard, challenging, scary, something that you want that you don't have, don't be a malcontent. Always apply these two words. Be courageous. They will help you do the next right thing, whatever the next right thing in your life is. So remember, personal fidelity backed up with be courageous.
Awesome. Stay with me, will you please, Bill?
Yeah.
For just a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the show. His name is Bill Treasure. The book is called Courage Goes to Work. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, your favorite bookstore. I imagine it's even up in Canada in Chapters. You Canadians who listen to me, I appreciate you listening to me, but I promise you it's probably Chapters bookstore, which is huge, right? So get it there too as well. Again, it's the 10th anniversary edition called Courage Goes to Work by Bill Treasurer. Treasurer is his name. And he's a CEO. He's a Chief Encouragement Officer, and I love that about him. Folks, as I say every week, you know what? Be inspired, because when you're inspired, that allows you to inspire other people. And when we do that, that allows them to inspire someone else. And if we all do that every day, what happens is we're able to change this world in an amazing way and in a very positive way. So be inspired. I have another great guest coming for you next week. Have a great holiday. And you know what? Ciao, everybody.
Your confidence and the answers don't make sense. You got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your time to fly. A new direction, a brand new day. A new direction, things are gonna change. Can find the strength to go a different way, yeah. The time has come. Your dreams will take you places you